Record. Get cracking. All right. We have made it. Congratulations, you guys. This has been one full, hopefully productive, if not getting you towards productive month, where we cleaned our slate. So we put everything into a dashboard. Everyone that I know is on this call has created that dashboard. Some of them have bifurcated. Maybe we've got some personal and some work dashboards. Sometimes you have a dashboard for a particular project. And if you guys can all make sure you're muted, I think maybe one or two of you guys might not be muted. My mouse doesn't seem to be doing the things that it wants to be doing. So doing that allowed you to visualize your work, and that was the whole goal, is to get a better handle on all the demands on your time by being able to see your work. And just a quick review, we've done externalize, and with externalize, we started with that big old mind sweep. You might remember it. I think Mike Hart won with 160, but many people had a lot of things up there in their brain, and we externalized it into Trello, into some options into Trello. We also created a capture habit. So you thought of a trigger, a routine, and reward for all the different ways that work comes into your world. And then we started to organize that, because that one big list of work options can get big, it can get hairy. And even deciding that, okay, well, I've got some future options and some options right now, and then doing and done. Sometimes you need to make that workflow represent what you are actually doing. So a way of doing that, I apologize, I just want to... this was bugging me. A way of doing that is to make that workflow your own. So some people like to do, some people like on deck, some people like future options, some people like this quarter. A lot of you guys like this week, good ideas, someday maybe, upcoming projects, current projects, and waiting for were all ways that you created your own unique personas based off the work that you do and your personality and how you like to see your work. And I think almost everybody has a very unique background. I won't say who this is, but I bet you could guess whose background this is. And the workflows and the organization is looking really good. The next step we talked about was visualization. So it's not what a lot of people ascribe to visualization, just like, oh, if I see it, maybe it will come to me. It's defining what done looks like. It's thinking about what you want, dividing that out into 3 to 6 steps, and making sure that first step is actionable, starts with a verb, and takes no more than 5 minutes to do. This is the break it down technique that we learned. And you want to make it easy enough for the version of yourself that needs a nap, let's say. And there's that story that I brought in last week with Casey Patey, and how she taught her young niece to clean her room by actually breaking it down into very, very small projects that made the work easy, fun, and attainable. And those of you who posted your homework in the Facebook said the same things. Stasia said, because there was one card that was stuck on her list and couldn't really see why. And it turns out it had more steps than she initially thought. So something that you thought might be easy really might have 4 or 5 steps. And then when you go to that card or whatever note in your to-do list that you have, it's difficult to take action because you have to first decide what to do and then do it. And a lot of times that thinking is cognitively demanding, and you default to just not doing anything. The other form of not being clear with yourself, of having some ambiguity that happens, is not being clear on why. So we talked about how to create stories for your why, and really getting clear on what it is that needs to be done. This is actually, I will call him out because he posted it there. Bobby said that he was able to take a number of confusing emails from a client and then just put them into a easy step-by-step process, which was half the battle to doing the work, and it made doing the work significantly easier. So that's visualization. Externalize to capture your work, organize to make the work easy to see, visualize to make it easy to do. And then now we're on to, and this is got by far my favorite subject. It's probably my favorite because it's just a new one for me, is creating the habit of reflecting on your work and learning from your work so you can always do better next time. Do more of what you enjoy. Do more of what's giving you results. Speaking with a handful of you about a book that I'm going through right now. It's called Principles by this billionaire named Ray Dalio. And Ray Dalio created a company around radical honesty and radical truth, and just trying to find out what is real. And as an investor, sometimes it's easy to think you know something until the markets go a way that you didn't expect, and then you've got some pain right there. And that's an opportunity to say, what did I miss? What didn't I see? What could I pull into my awareness that will allow me to be better next time? And for him, it was a market crash in the 1980s that he didn't expect to rebound as quickly. And he learned through history that, oh, okay, in this particular situation, it could be. And then by the time the 2008 recession started, he had learned from his lessons and was one of the few companies in the world that made, I think it was like 14 or 15% that year when everyone else was losing 20 to 30% of their portfolio. How Ray says it for himself and for the people in his organization is that these pain points, these problems are opportunities. Sam Carpenter, who wrote the book Work the System, says the same thing. There are opportunities for your business to create more process, to create more systems, to improve. And there are opportunities for you and your personal life to be improved. There are puzzles to be solved. Everything has happened before. Everything is just another one of those. So if you're experiencing something that is unpleasant, a redirect you can have is to think, oh boy, I've got a learning opportunity right here. You may not feel that way in the moment, so the best habit might be to capture that thing that didn't go as well as you had hoped and to reflect on it later. And a lot of times with Kanban, with our work, you will have work that is frustrating and stressful and not the thing that you want to be doing. So the question now is, when, where, and how can you fit reflection into your week, improvement into your week? And that is what and I'm Jorge, thank you for the name. I actually didn't have a name for it, but now I do. It's the weekly Clean Slate sessions. It's all about cleaning your slate so you feel up to speed on everything. So what cleaning your slate is just to set everything back to where your work is updated, to your work is in a place where it needs to be. Everything's clarified, everything's up to date. We'll get into the nitty gritty of the details, but the benefits are multiple. First, it prevents your mind from taking back your job of remembering. If you remember back to a little lesson I did in the first week, we talked about the Zeigarnik effect and how your mind has a way of remembering incomplete tasks the most. And the way it deals with this is by reminding you periodically about those incomplete tasks. So if you have a lot of open projects, your brain is going to be reminding you constantly about those open projects. The two solutions to the Zeigarnik effect, or at least the negative aspects of the Zeigarnik effect, are to, one, stop time and somehow do everything that you need to do, or two, capture it in a place where you trust you are going to review in the future. And not only you trust it, but your brain actually trusts it. So it can't be written on the back of an Arby's napkin underneath the car seat in the back of the van. It needs to be in a place where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know I'm going to come back here. And for you, hopefully it is that Trello board right now for you. So it prevents your mind from taking back the job of remembering. And that opens up extra RAM, extra bandwidth for creative thinking, for decision making, for seeing patterns, which is what our brains are really good at doing. They're subpar memory banks at best. The next thing Clean Slate session allows you to do is to separate the thinking from the doing. Some of you guys went on to the bonus section, or maybe a few more have reviewed the bonus we did with Matt Cowdroy. The company he works for, Think Productive, talks about going either into boss mode or worker mode. And I really like this idea. So if you're in your boss mode, you're doing the planning, you're doing the strategizing, you're slightly elevated from the work. You're not doing any of the work. You're just planning the work and planning your systems and planning what needs to happen when, who's working with whom, where are the deadlines on that, what are some of the next actions that need to be done, what actually are we trying to do here in the first place. That's what the boss does. That's what the CEO self does. And then the worker, once the boss has created the plans, just gets to go in and execute those plans. And the better you are at the boss as a boss, the less stressful the worker is going to be. And the benefit is boss mode only has to happen 1 to 2 hours a week, and then the worker mode for the rest of the 30 plus hours a week that you're in worker mode, that guy or gal is doing a lot better. She doesn't have to make as many decisions. She can just do the work as needed, or if things come in, do the work as things come in. Gives you perspective. Like we were saying before, you're above the work. You're seeing the work as a whole system versus being lost in the minutia. Or I know I was talking with at least two people last Friday about how work just has a way of showing up, and that feels like the most important thing. Where if you've captured that work that just showed up, you've got perspective against other pieces of work and other priorities that you can then juggle. It gives you more energy and calm. I know for me that if I go too long without one of these clean slate sessions, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little anxious because I don't feel like I have complete control over my world, and it allows you to miss fewer details. Additionally, because you have reminders set in there, you have placeholders, especially that waiting for list can be very good for not letting or ensuring people do what they've promised, as well as you following through with what you've promised. It allows you to give appropriate attention. So going back to separating the thinking from the doing, for the boss mode from the worker mode, it can be easy to think that, oh boy, okay, Zach's asking me to take an extra 30 minutes to an hour to 90 minutes to. With some people, it may take up to 2 hours, especially for your first few clean slate sessions as you get used to the process here. I think you can get it down to under an hour. I recorded and I shared with you a clean slate session that I did. And it was about 26 minutes long. It didn't include a couple parts to it, which we'll talk about later. So I'd say the whole thing took me about 45 minutes. But it's the time reduced. The time for these clean slate sessions will go down as you get used to it. However, this isn't just time I'm asking you to take. You are doing this thinking. You are doing this planning regardless. You don't just sit down and start executing and knowing exactly what to do. You sit down, think, okay, what needs to be done, and then you do it. So this time is already being used. It's just being used in an ineffective manner. You're switching from boss mode to worker mode. You're switching from the prefrontal executive functioning to the other parts of your brain that allow creativity and the actual doing of the work. And this is inefficient. It makes it much more difficult to do because you're constantly switching back to different types of functioning of the brain. And if you could separate those two, you're going to save time overall, and you're going to have better results overall because you're going to have the appropriate amount of attention on the work rather than thinking about the work while trying to do the work. Allows you to be present because you're not always worried about something slipping through the cracks or how many things that you have to do because you know you have a place stored for them. It allows you to feel in control of your commitments, and it gives you direction and confidence. I think that's all I wrote. Nope, one more. Allows you to regroup and reprioritize. I really want to get the benefits out there because this is not an easy thing to do. I've asked very little in terms of behavior change so far. The main one was the capture habit, which if you hadn't had that habit beforehand, that is a major change. This one's going to be even more difficult to stick with. That's in my experience. People can get used to capturing their to-dos and their projects and their waiting fors in a very short amount of time, usually a couple weeks before that starts becoming second nature. This weekly clean slate session takes a bit longer. And I think part of what it has to do with it is cognitively demanding, and it doesn't always feel like a priority. So there's times where your week is just going crazy. You feel like you have very little bandwidth, and those are the times that people tend to let the positive habits in their life fall. Their good sleep, their exercise, if they do meditation, if they have any sort of reflection or journaling habit. And this is another one. The idea of planning your week tends to get dropped when things get busy. So it's hard for people to stick with it because things always get busy. You might have a couple good weeks in a row, and then the onslaught comes. And what it takes is just remembering that why. Why are you doing this? What is your main objective here? And if you want to do more with less effort and keep your systems functional, this is how you do it. So that is why. That is my, I can step off my soapbox a little bit now, but as we get into the how, but really, really want to drive in the importance that this will give you. This is the way that you can maintain the system. Otherwise, it will get out of date, and you won't trust it. You won't use it, and it will be less and less useful for you, because if you don't trust it, even if you have 80% in there, without getting towards 90 to 95 to 100% of your work in your clean slate system, your brain will keep doing that thinking, and you will keep on switching back from worker to boss mode all throughout the week and doing extra cognitively demanding work that doesn't need to happen. So, okay, now I'm stepping off my soapbox. So how do you do this? The first step is to schedule it. The second step is to use a checklist. So not too difficult, right? This is a picture from Kendra's a wonderful calendar. It's her mom's birthday today, so we can all text Kendra happy birthday to her mom, because I took a screenshot from the recording that Kendra did when she talked about planning and scheduling your week. And you can see right here, she gives herself a 3-hour block for her weekly planning, and she chooses to do it on Friday. I admitted that mine isn't as firm, but it's always on the bookend of the week. So it's either at the beginning or the end of the week. And because of Kendra's wonderful example, I now have it in my calendar. So this is what it looks like in my Google Calendar at 2 p.m. on Fridays. Starting next Friday, because I might have a coaching session with one of you guys. This is my personal clean slate session. So I'm going to empty my buckets. And by that, if you can remember back to the triggers that we talked about, you've got your Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and email. So those are all the buckets that you may have collected potential work. So for me, it's email, Evernote, and Trello. Then review my calendar. So I go forward 2 weeks and I go backwards 2 weeks to just make sure I'm seeing everything coming and checking to see if anything behind me needs to be picked up. Then I decide, clarify, and schedule my big rocks. And by clarify, I mean just saying what all the next actions are and scheduling them, seeing in my calendar where a likely time those can happen. Not a definite time, but a very likely time. And then post the big rocks visually. I've talked to you guys before about how I use a little hybrid sticky note system. So I take my big rocks and I make Post-it notes out of them, and I put them on my whiteboard so I can always see them and always remember that they're there. Then I reflect on the work, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So another thing, in addition to scheduling it, is deciding where it's going to be. A lot of clients that I've worked with have a hard time doing this at their workplace, just because there's so many interruptions and got-a-minute meetings that they find it hard to do. One of the most successful routines of getting organized and getting clear on your work that I've seen was a client a couple of years ago who chose on Friday to go to his favorite cafe before work. And he would go and he planned all of his work and had this wonderful session. He had and had a coffee while he was doing it. It was part of this overall ritual. The trigger was to go to this place, and the routine. We had created a checklist for what he was going to do to plan his week, and then the reward was he got a nice cup of coffee afterwards. And other rewards I've seen and I've used personally are just going out, going for a walk, taking a long lunch, um, giving yourself just some sort of break. We'll talk about, if we have time, a little bit of a way that you can buy some happiness back. But before we do that, I want to have everyone take the time and just do it now. It doesn't have to be the perfect time. You can always move this calendar appointment. It doesn't have to be the perfect checklist. You can always add and subtract things to the checklist. I will give you my my checklist here as an example, and I'll try to leave that up. And then here is actually I'll leave this one up because what this former client did is he had an MVP weekly review to just make sure he got everything, and then a full weekly review, so you can kind of see an example there. But what I want to happen is for everyone, and I will kind of leave this up, but I want to see everyone right now. All right. How much time do you need? 3 minutes, you think? 2 minutes to schedule this in there? And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask me some questions. But the idea is you're going to find a time for this, and you're going to give yourself a checklist of what you're going to do. So for me, and I can even share my my personal Kanban board right here. I've actually got a weekly review card that repeats every week. And so here I zero my email inbox, zero Trello notes and ideas. So, okay, I've got like my notes and ideas over here on the left-hand side. I zero Evernote, which I did not do last week. So my Evernote's very full. Put all of my receipts into the scan folder, zero paper inbox. So I've got where all the mail goes. I just make sure all of those have been answered. Delete, delegate, defer, define, and update Trello. Review calendar for the week. Decide, clarify, and schedule big rocks. Post big rocks visually, and then reflect on the work. So I'll let you guys put that in there. However it makes sense for you. You can add or subtract. I know one thing Kendra talked about was on her desktop. She made sure her desktop was clean. She uses the sticky notes. So my desktop is a little dirty because I was making this presentation. But that's another good place where sometimes people leave stuff. Sometimes actual desktop. So like physical workspace, that could be another area that you want to kind of clean up. That could be another collection point. I'm trying to see if there's any more. I wrote down a couple examples. If you're not familiar with big rocks, that comes from Stephen Covey. Those are just your most important tasks for the week. Usually 1 to 3 is about average for big rocks, but it can change depending on your the type of work that you do. Oh, we got something in the chat. Ground zero. Okay. Has everyone had enough time for putting their event in their calendar? I see Katie's nodding. Stasia. Okay. So it's in there. Does anyone want to share when they decided to do their clean slate session and maybe some reasons why they think that it would be a good time?
So I scheduled mine on Friday afternoon because that's generally a lower energy time, and it allows me to just wrap up my week so that I can go about my weekend and not worry about it.
Great, great. Yeah. A lot of people like Friday because it gives that cap to their week. You could just go into the weekend and just know that you've got things under control and good. I think that Friday's probably the most common time. One thing you might run into, and I've run into this before, is if you do it too late in the afternoon on Friday, you might just be wanting to get out of there, or you might also, if you've had a long week, to just like be a little tired and brain dead, and even if you force yourself to do it, you have a hard time with it. But the benefits of Friday are that being ready for the weekend, which is great. And also, if you've got a lot of waiting fors, it's a great time to ping everyone before the end of the weekend. And so it's just like, okay, get all those out, and then now I don't need to worry about it. And hopefully by Monday and Tuesday, people will start responding to the things that I needed them to respond to. So that's great, Katie. Anybody else have a different time besides Friday? All Fridays? All Fridays. Well, very good. All right. I guess we got a crew that wants to have a nice weekend. All right. So this is going to allow us to stay current on our work. However, there's an added benefit that Kanban allows that many to-do list systems don't, and that's the ability to really see the work that you've done that week and to really start to think about and to review to see if there's anything that you could do to improve on that work. So this is a resource that I'm going to give you. It'll be on on this page where the homework is. So the Clean Slate lesson /4. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat right here. But what this is a way to look at your work from a different perspective. So I've showed this to a few of you, but not everyone. So a way of figuring out how you can optimize your work, figuring out how you can make continuous improvements to your work, is to take what you've done for that week and look at it in a different light. So a really cool, fast way of doing that is to just create a little matrix. And you can have this matrix live in a Trello board if you want to. So I know a number of people have set up some automations using Butler where their done list will move to a different board, and then they could review. Maybe there's a boss, team, family, and me sections. The way I do it is, since I make my work visible with those sticky notes, is I actually just draw it on a whiteboard, these different quadrants, and then I move my work in there based off that. So if somebody's having a hard time with their work-life balance, they might create a matrix like this. So here's the time that I'm being a boss. That might be literal, or maybe you're talking about boss mode for yourself. This is the time I'm devoting to my team. This is the time I'm devoted to my family. This is the time I've devoted for me. There might be other areas of responsibility that you have that you would want to look at. So maybe you as a manager, you as a creative, you as a salesperson, you as a administrator. So there's different roles that you perform, and you can see if you've got balance in all those roles by taking your work and putting it into those various groups. So that's one way of reflecting on your work. Another way, as a matrix, will enjoyment versus effort. So right here, if you've got a very high, very low effort, so if you've got this quadrant right here, this is the type of work that you might not be suited for. Some people are great at big picture and seeing everything. Other people are better at the details. Some people are amazing at synthesizing ideas. Other people are maybe more straightforward with them. And there's a number of psychometric tests out there. DISC profile is one of them. Myers-Briggs is another. Colby is another. The Big Five is one I've been reading a lot about lately. So there's all these different personality tests that you can take to really see what type of work you're best suited for. And doing the work that you're not very well suited for it tends to be more effort. You tend to make more mistakes. You tend to be less happy with your work. So finding somebody else on your team, finding hiring somebody, even if it's just for a one-off task, you're self-employed and you just get somebody to do your bookkeeping because you hate it, because bookkeeping's the devil. I might be in that situation, maybe. I don't know. So there's a way of seeing that work and seeing, okay, how can I press the easy button on this? How can I get rid of that stuff? Or do I even need to be doing it anymore? Maybe it's a low enjoyment, high effort for this particular client that is giving you a lot of grief. And you realize he's not paying me enough for this grief. So you can either up the prices for your grief fee, or you can just find a way to not work with him as much in the future. So that's another matrix you can use. Impact versus effort. We talked about this one on the beginning, but you can also do this at the end. So if you've got some tasks that you thought might be high impact and low effort, and then you do your review and they turned out to be high effort and low impact, well, okay, you learn something from there. You can take that knowledge and make sure something like that doesn't happen in the future. If you're a business owner, that might be something like a decision-making criteria that you write down. Even for yourself, the principles books that I was referring to by Ray Dalio, he suggests people write down principles that they want to live by, and that could find a principle for you where it's like, oh boy, okay, so I tried doing this and this keeps happening. Let's not do that anymore. This can be for people in a situation that might have a lot of work that just comes to them versus proactive work. So interrupted, planned, other, or unplanned work. So this type of matrix, if you are wanting to move into more proactive planned work, this could be very helpful for you because you can see your interruptions and you can take note of them and be like, okay, well, these pieces of work were interrupted me during the week. I didn't get my planned work done. Here's some unplanned work that happened, and maybe there's another category that you want to put in there, just like maintenance stuff that you have to do every week. Here's another good one: loved it, hated it, neutral. So the more in the hated it category, how can you delete, delegate, defer those hated stuff, or just drop it? And if you love it, how can you do more of that? How can you find more work like that? And if you're neutral, it might be something that could be automated or just something you realize you got to do. Needed me can be outsourced. So matrix doesn't always have to have 4 quadrants, but you can just decide what type of work was simple enough to be outsourced to somebody else, on time or stressed out. So that could be another one. And here is one. This is a very new one for me. I read it in a book called Making the Leap. And oh, it's right behind me. I was going to show it. But Making the Leap, and it talks about your zone of genius, your zone of excellence, zone of incompetence, and zone of competence. So it's another way of reflecting upon your work. And that zone of genius is just stuff you're built for. Nobody's better at this than you. And the proposition is the book is if you can get 60 to 70% of your work to be in the zone of genius, you are going to just have a happy, fulfilled, abundant, successful life because so few people do it. A lot of times, I bet if you did this reflection, you'd be lucky to get 1 or 2 cards into the zone of genius. But if you are constantly looking and reviewing and reflecting and thinking about what things am I great at and how can I do more of them, you'll get to do more of them over time and get that continuous growth. Here's another one for business owners. There's certain work that's just $10 hour work, booking plane tickets, email, expensing reports, $100 simple task, customer follow-up, $1,000 hour creating sales or marketing campaigns, $10,000 an hour doing public speaking or recruiting people. This is something Oliver is working at. He's got some $10,000 hour work because he decided his one thing was he's got a few positions he needs to fill. So that's some more way of reflecting on the work. And I am so glad we have some extra time. I've got a little discussion thing that we can do. So I've got to unplug my mic so we can all see this. And we talked about scheduling, having a checklist for your clean slate session, and having some sort of reward. Here is a reward I would suggest a lot of you guys consider.
Have you ever heard the phrase, money can't buy happiness? Of course you have. Well, some researcher money to buy more time rather than stuff, you really can be a bit happier. NPR's Allison Aubrey has this report.
This time of year, it's easy to feel pulled in multiple directions. With the back-to-school season, we struggle to manage the demands of home and work. Newly married Mark and Colleen Coriel told me that sometimes it feels like there just aren't enough hours in the day. He works in IT, she's a lawyer.
I work probably 60 plus hours a week. I can't believe how busy I am, a lot more than I ever expected.
Last year they bought a house, which they love, but Colleen says cleaning it is a real pain. And Mark says now every weekend he's got to mow the lawn.
It's just some days I'd just rather not.
The Coriels say they'd love more free time. They'd rather spend Saturday afternoons at a bowl game or a concert or just hanging out.
I'd rather have wine with my wife. It's a much more enjoyable experience than sweating and being annoyed with my used lawnmower.
But so far, the Coriels say they have not considered hiring a lawn service or a cleaning service.
I don't know. I like doing stuff myself. It's like a point of pride in that.
I truly think it's an American work ethic thing.
I think we were both raised very blue collar, so we'd rather do stuff ourselves than pay for someone else to do it.
Sound familiar? Researchers who study people's daily habits and decisions say they hear this all the time. Elizabeth Dunn is a professor of psychology at the University of British Columbia.
Contemplating paying somebody else to do something you are perfectly capable of doing yourself may provoke these feelings of guilt.
Even though we live in a culture where many people don't bat an eye at spending money on a new car or a fancy pair of shoes, Dunn and her colleagues had a hunch that if people spent a little less on things and a little more on help with tasks like cleaning or yard work, they might feel more satisfied with their quality of life.
We hypothesized that people would be happier if they spent money to buy themselves out of the things they don't like doing.
To test this theory, Dunn and her colleagues decided to do a study in two parts. For the first part, they recruited a bunch of working adults, gave them some cash, and asked them to spend it in two different ways.
On one weekend, we gave them $40 and asked them to spend it in any way that would give them more free time.
Some people did spend it on a cleaning service, others had groceries delivered, or hired someone to run errands. Then, on the next weekend, the participants got another $40, this time to spend on a material purchase, things like a piece of jewelry or clothing.
One person bought polo shirts, another person bought wine that she described as fancy.
After each weekend purchase, Dunn and her colleagues asked the participants how they were feeling.
How much positive emotion they'd been experiencing, how much negative emotion they'd been experiencing, as well as rating their levels of time stress.
And what they found is that when people spent money on time-saving services, they reported more positive emotion.
Buying yourself out of an unpleasant experience like mowing the lawn or cleaning the bathroom, these were pretty small, mundane expenditures, and yet we see them making a measurable difference for people's happiness.
So how much happier are we talking about here? To figure this out, Dunn and her colleagues did the second part of the study. They surveyed about 6,000 people in the US, Canada, and Europe across the income spectrum. Many were working-age adults with children.
The question we asked is this: do you spend money to outsource any tasks that you dislike doing?
And they also asked the participants to rank themselves on a 10-point scale of life satisfaction. Think of it as a happiness ladder with 10 rungs.
What we found was that people who spent money to buy time reported being almost 1 full point higher on our 10-point ladder compared to people who did not use money to buy time.
And this held true across all income levels, from people of average means to millionaires. So this raises an interesting question. Why are so many of us reluctant to do something that evidence shows can make us feel more satisfied with our lives?
That is NPR's Allison Aubrey. She is in their studios with us.
David.
I don't want to be a coach, but I have some.
All right. So what do you guys think of that? Here, let me get my ads. All right, I'll keep this audio. So I'm thinking out loud, what's something that you guys could buy yourself out of, some things that you dislike that you can start to pay somebody else to do. I think this reflection will help with that. You'll maybe find more things, but really understanding that this is almost the only way to buy happiness. And the report went on a little bit further to say that it was 1 point on a scale, but it's incredibly hard to change people's default level. Some people are just kind of grumpy. Some people are just happy-go-lucky. So this is meaningful. It's something that instead of buying a new thing, you can buy back some more time or some more peace of mind. So I know one thing that I did this week, I had a cleaning service and the person that I was using stopped being as reliable. So this weekend I went on to TaskRabbit, and Wednesday I've got a new cleaning person coming in and going to schedule them for every week. And because it's just nice to have that deep cleaning done. I work from home so often that it's something that's helpful. And as of probably 10 minutes ago, my fiance and I have 2 dogs, so that's going to be important. Instead of just 1 dog, so we got some extra vacuuming to do. What about you guys? Anything that you can buy yourself out of that you hadn't thought of before?
Laundry.
Laundry, that's great. I used to do that in Denver when I was living in this small little studio. We had this terrible washer that we could use, and hated doing it, so we ended up buying a laundry service. It was amazing. It was the best. They folded it for you. They picked it up and they dropped it off. And I wasn't making a ton of money at the time, but it was worth every penny for sure. Laundry is good.
Not in terms of a service, but I think that sometimes buying tools. So I bought myself a Dyson stick vacuum cleaner, which means that I don't have to plug it in all over the house, and you can just do it really, really quick without having to drag the whole thing out. And just, to me, that's actually saved me a lot of time. And I don't have one, but I imagine something like a dishwasher.
Yeah.
One of those things.
That would be good. So time-saving devices. I didn't even think about that. I just kind of assumed getting a person to do it. But there's also like automations that I'm sure could be out there too.
Roomba.
A Roomba, yeah. We attempted a Roomba and it didn't quite work for us. We had to return it. It couldn't get into all the rooms and kept on getting stuck in the corner. But I'm sure there's better models. Bonnie, I feel like there's got to be something for you to buy back some more time. What do you think are something that you have that you could?
Well, tax prep, definitely.
Yeah.
I got a husband who's like, we can do it better or cheaper, but I'm always the one doing it, and it takes hours.
Yeah, yeah. That's some of the best money I ever spend is my accountant. It's like, please, just do it for me. And it's kind of a peace of mind thing too. Unless you don't trust accountants, then.
Well, yeah, no, he doesn't trust them. I do, so.
Yeah.
I actually hired an accountant when I had my business, but it was really expensive for what I was making, and I ended up doing it myself again. So there's that. I mean, it wasn't, the price point was too high for me.
Yeah. Well, one thing a lot of people don't realize is you don't have to get a CPA or a certified public accountant to do your taxes. I hire a bookkeeper to do mine, and I think I paid $250 last year for him to do my taxes. So yeah, you can find other service providers. So if you ever go back to business for yourself, I will hook you up with my guy. He's good. He's a little chatty, which is surprising. It's like, if you're so cheap, why are you talking to me so much? Like, just get the job done. Cool. All right. Well, buying things that will give you time is good. Reflecting is good. Cleaning your slate is good. We have a few extra minutes here. Is there any questions that you guys have for me? We've obviously got our last group coaching. I'm having to think about what we could do. Stasi and Fran were talking in the Facebook group as far as something potentially a month, 6 weeks down the line. The thing that came top of mind is potentially doing just a quick call, probably the same time, and just having a little reunion, seeing how everyone's doing. But I'll continue to think about that because I'm sort of leaving you like, here's your system, here's how you maintain it. Good luck. And I wouldn't mind some sort of little recap down the way. But any questions about cleaning your slate, about scheduling it, about organizing your work, about reviewing your work? Otherwise, I will just send you off to your homework. All right. Well, this Wednesday, I do have a special guest for people who've ever been on a remote team or potentially a software team or something of that nature. This girl is a specializes in Agile and Scrum. So this is a way of organizing your work and executing it in short amounts of time, usually 1 to 2 week frames. Her team does 1 week, what they're called sprints. And she's going to show the actual boards of her team for marketing, her marketing calendar, for a content schedule, and for the sales team. So how to create a CRM, a customer relationship manager, using Trello. So I'm really excited about that call on Wednesday. So it'll be a nice little bonus section. But until then, that's what we got. That was Clean Slate. I hope you guys enjoyed the program. Cool. All right. Oh, I'm so sad. It's going to be the end. Very open to feedback on everything. This was my first go, and it's something that I plan on doing over and over and over again, making improvements every time. So if you can call me out right now. If you want to send a personal email, if you want to put anything in the Facebook group, I'm very open to any sort of improvement that I could have made, anything I could have made simpler, anything that would have been more effective for you as far as learning goes, and things of that nature. I've already got a gajillion ideas, but having more is always good, especially from people who are trying to do it. All right. Well, I do. We'll see you guys on. Yeah, absolutely. Dishwasher. Yeah. I wasn't noticing the sidebar right there. Yeah, tax prep and dishwasher. Perfect, guys. Well, thank you so much for jumping in on this and coming in and doing the work. I really hope that you guys are getting the results that you're looking for it. Having a place where you can see your work, having some more control, pulling in the right work at the right time. That has made a massive difference in my life as somebody who used to be just all over the place and really had a hard time following through with his obligations, to somebody who felt a lot more in control, and in fact in control enough to get a new dog and to start a new business and to go travel the world. These are things that it's allowed me to do. So I'm hoping it will give you some of that as well. All right. Well, take care. Bye, guys.